Hello guys, welcome to Spirit Pig. This is the show that explores how to live a fulfilled life. I'm Duncan CJ and today I'm speaking with Derek Mills. Derek is an internationally acclaimed speaker, best-selling author of the book The 10-Second Philosophy, wealth manager, coach and mentor. And he runs a senior partner practice at one of the UK's premier FTSE 100 companies and has spent the past 12 years coaching and guiding millionaires and multi-millionaires to grow their wealth. However, one of the reasons why I actually got Derek on today and what makes his story so interesting is that until his late 30s, his business life was, I think in your own words, a complete failure. He barely had any time with his family. He was stressed, overworked and unbelievably unhappy until he discovered a way that turned the whole of his life and business around. And within 3 years after that, he had earned his first million. He'd moved up to, I think, the top 1% of the top 1% of financial advisors worldwide. And best of all, he now works, I think it was, last time I saw, it was 3.5 days a week. And he spends the rest of the time with his family and close friends. So I want to just delve into this, find out what happened, like basically what the kind of change in the mindset was. And, but first of all, hello. How you doing? Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Duncan.
Things got back before the transformation. Things got, they got really, really tough, didn't they? I think you had to struggle with potential foreclosures. You once had like this phone call from your wife one day. Can you basically just explain what that was about?
Yeah, I've been struggling with the issue of debt since I was, about 21, 22. Didn't know anything about money. And as I struggled through, I kind of building up debt and earning money and building up more debt. And I got married about 25, but by 25, I'd already had one house repossessed. That was in my own name. And that doesn't come out very often. That's that's way back at the psyche, but obviously it comes out today. And then basically when I was about 29, I had to go to court because I was behind with the mortgage payments. And they'd tried all the different payment plans with me, but I ended up in front of the district judge just kind of saying, please, one more chance. I promise you, I will pay the woolage, as it was called then, part of Barclays now, I think. I will pay the woolage bill site in my mortgage. And I managed to save the house repossession because whatever conspired, God decided to tell the judge, give him one more chance, just one more chance. So I got that chance. And but then later on in my early 30s, I was still in debt, trying to pay off old debts from my 20s, that knock-on effect. And that day came when I'm in the office one afternoon and working on a self-employed basis, what you called fees or commission only back in those days. And my wife just said, no, Derek, the bailiffs are in the house. And in the UK, they're in the house for what we call them bailiffs. They're in the house because I hadn't paid the property taxes, which is called council tax. And what essentially happened, she said to me, well, they're not going to take the furniture today, but if you don't pay the thing within 7 days, according to this paperwork, they're going to come back and take the furniture in 7 days. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, listen, love, leave it to me. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. And she said, oh, and by the way, you do remember that mum and dad, which is my in-laws, her mum and dad, are visiting from Ireland today. And I said, yes. And she said, well, they're here as well. And I was on this phone. I was just, I don't know, it's hard to even explain, but get to know to imagine how humiliated and the kind of pit that I sunk into in that moment, knowing that my in-laws are right there when the bailiffs are wandering around the house with the flip chart or flipboard, whatever. So anyway, it was just a sign, really, that these were just signs and symbols of how disjointed I was with who I really was in life. And the fact that I'd, fell into that trap that, which in the matrix you might describe it as, buy stuff, join in, spend money that you haven't got, try and do things that you really can't afford, and get all that. And I bought all of that, hook, line, and sinker. Hook took me away, and I did all that right through, my early to mid, almost late 20s. So I was actually in debt, even though I was a self-employed, financial advisor. So there you go.
And then, you had I think it was 18 years of sort of setting and then I think failing to achieve goals, didn't you? This idea of setting goals. And that was, I guess, instilled into you. And one day you were working late in your office, security guard came knocking on the door being like, hey, ready to lock up. And you were just like, just give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Came back a few minutes later, you're like, 2 more minutes. And he asked you a question, which was a turning point, wasn't it? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. The key aspect of this, Duncan, is to pay attention.
Yeah.
pay attention. Because when we pay attention, we get the clues that the universe has been sending maybe for weeks, months, or maybe even for years when we pay attention. Because, yeah, I'd been, up until the end of 2003, November, I'd been doing the goal thing. So I was 38 years old then, and I'd gone on, I listened to the tapes, showing my age there, aren't I? I listened to the CDs and I listened to and read some books, been on a couple of courses, and all the great talkers and speakers and gurus at the time said, no, in essence, they encapsulated in you set goals to be successful. And who doesn't say that? Every one of them says that. But here's the challenge that I was living until I was 38. I've been setting the goals. I'd even visualized them. I'd even written them down. But I was 38. I was broke and depressed. So that night when the security guard came knocking on the door, I asked for a bit more time. And then he asked me that question, which changed absolutely everything. And that's the thing. In life, we do have to begin to pay attention to the words, thoughts, questions, phrases, and ideas that come to us, because they do come. It's whether we're paying attention to when the question comes. So he asked me a question, and the question was a non-question. It was simply this: what time did you get in this morning? That is no question, is it? That's just like it's a nonsense question. It's not a real thing. And in the previous 38 years, it would have meant nothing. But for whatever reason, I was paying attention in that moment. And as he walked away, because I said, well, about 8 o'clock, I got in, and he walked away. I realised I've been up since 6, on the road at 7, in the office just before 8 o'clock. It was now almost 10 in the evening, and I've been doing that not just for weeks, but for months, but for years. 5-6 days a week, missing my wife, missing my children, fracturing those relationships, not being a good dad, brother, almost said sister then, but dad, brother, whatever, not being the person and not having many friends. I don't think I invested time into people, so I didn't have many real friends. So I felt broke, so I felt depressed, and I was broke. But in that moment, I had this kind of epiphany or 10-second moment. I realized, hold on a second, I've been doing this goal setting thing for 17 years. I've done what they all said, but I'm broke and depressed. Goals don't work. And the next thing said to me, well, goals need help. Because goals do need help. Goals do not work on their own. This isn't a 1-year revelation. It's a 7-year study of all the greats telling me this stuff and still not getting there. The funny thing is, let me just cut out for a second and go off on a tangent. Since then, I've spoken all around the world on 5 continents now. When I asked those questions, we realized that with the work that was done by Leslie PR in 2012, that most people around the world that set goals don't achieve them.
I was going to bring up that, research says 3% or something.
Exactly. So we'll come back to that. And so I was in that moment realizing I'm one of those guys that have been setting goals, listening to what I've been told to do, and not doing it. In that space, I found a real quiet spot inside of me, and it was kind of my own, what I call the inner voice. My true self spoke to me in this moment, and it just gave me these concepts and ideas. And I just stood there in the office. I've been struggling for all these years and just paid attention. And I paid attention to the fact it said that goals need help. What you need to do is stop setting more goals and instead set daily standards from within, as in, so I'll define as we go along. This came as learning for me. But a daily standard is a basis, criterion, level, quality, or rule. Basis, criterion, level, quality, rule that we set from within, from our truth, not from the incongruency and the lack of truth from outside the world, but from inside of ourselves. So I said, okay, having almost like this spiritual conversation with myself. So daily standards, so that's what they are. And also we only do them for today. So if you live by the day, then you'll be centered, you'll be present, you'll be in your life. And these concepts were like, just imagine a revolution going on in your own body going, well, no, because I've been living for 17 years. I know what the teachers tell us. But the honest truth that came out of my true self was that, and look at you now. See, this isn't your life. And this is not who you're meant to be. This is not your place. And how you're feeling right now, this is not for you. You're meant to be something else because you already are. And what we need to do is to work together to kind of strip away the stuff that you're not. I just call that your non-self stuff. Yeah. Strip away your non-self and just dare to be yourself. And, so the idea for me was, it was more of a spiritual thing, but it was actually to say, and there are some practical things you can do, which is set some standards from within. So I began to do that. That night, I can be a bit silly about these things, I realise now. That night, I wrote down some standards that were really important to me back then because they change over time. I wrote some of them down, and I'm going to stop driving over the country, seeing clients. Clients must come to me as standard. No more working weekends. Take my kids to school every single morning in the morning, do the school run, pick them up 2-3 times a week. Friday would be as a brand new rule, which is a standard, daily standard. Friday would be Jerry time. That's my wife, Jerry. So just she and I on a Friday, and all these things around clients. A lot of my clients, I was suffering because I had not bad people, but poor clients. They weren't bad people. One or two of them were. They would they'd really abuse my trust and have me driving everywhere and say, "Can't do in the week, Derek. No. Can you come on Saturday? Can you come on Friday evening at 8?" And this, I was accepting this low standard of treatment and behavior and relationship. So that's where they met me. So as I lived this way, I found that I was working with people who basically had no money and weren't doing very well with their finances. And if you're working as a financial advisor with people who have got not much money, then guess where you end up? You end up also with no money. You can give them advice, but they haven't got much to advise around. So I did that and just struggled to pay the bills for those 17 years. But actually, once I then set new standards about what clients should be, their criteria for income, they have to be nice people, I really messed around with it because I said to myself, I stood by the filing cabinet just behind me over there. I used to share this room with other people. And for the last decade or so, I've had my own office, but I shared this very room with other people. And here's the thing, if you're a manager in any area at all, and you have people performing badly, do not put them together in a single room. It does not help. It doesn't. Just take that from me. It doesn't help. Anyway, so I'm in this room, and I made a decision that day, and I wrote out lots of my standards at that time, and I wrote them out and I color coded them. I went downstairs and I laminated them. That's just
it's got laminated. It's official.
Got to laminate it. Who doesn't like laminating? And I got I got 5 copies back then, and I went home and said to my wife that evening, new Derek, new husband, new standards. And even I didn't have any idea at all what that would really mean to me just a few years later. With the kids the next day, because our youngest was 1 or 2 just then, but the eldest 3, I said to them, I gave them a copy of my new daily standards and said, new dad, new standards. And I got the final copy, fridge magnet on the fridge, so and if you really do want to to stick to your daily standards, tell your kids.
Yeah, and they'll hold you to it.
Merciless, aren't they? So that's the how I got to that place of change, and the message was daily standards set from your truth, which I implemented into my life as well as my business.
Yeah. So what would you say is just the main difference between, say, a goal and a standard?
Oh, great. Because a goal, no matter who teaches you, is set in time. Yeah. It says by next week, next month, next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, is I will have that money, have that car, that relationship, that weight, that person, that promotion, and we can go on. And that's the challenge, because when I ask people around the world now is, what attachment do you put on that goal? The typical answers come back, but the most common answer that people give me is that when they achieve that goal, that they will be happy. Yeah, and this is part of the trap that I was in, because happiness is a present time experience. You can't be happy in the future. There's no such thing as being happy next week or in 3 years or end of the tax year or end of next quarter. It's just a concept. You can't be happy in the future. Happiness is a present time experience. You can only be happy in the now. So when goals say, when you do have the house, whatever, it's an illusion to think you can be happy when you got that thing. And
it's at the end of the rainbow, isn't it?
It's always there, and you're chasing it, like a little leprechaun. And I don't know where that came from. But the idea here is that I realised that was the thing. And for these years, Duncan, I'd been setting those goals, and I'd written them down, and I'd visualised some of them and the rest of it. And I said, when I get that, these weren't my exact words, but sometimes they were my exact words. I'll be happy when I get that. When I've gone there and got that house, and I've got the extra car, and not running around in this old banger and that type of stuff. And what I was really doing when I did my own research and analysed people later on, I was actually fracturing my happiness. Here's what was really happening. Don't you dare get me to be happy right now. I'll be happy when I've got those things. So no. Duncan, please don't try and get me to be happy today. Not until then will I be happy. So what's really happening is you're reserving, pushing aside, fracturing happiness and saying, it's over there. But no, that never comes most of the time for most people around the world. They never achieve the goal. So what happens to the happiness if they never achieve the goal? Secondly is, what does it do to the happiness quotient today if you put them off until tomorrow? So this is the illusion of goals. And it sounds like I'm putting goals down, but what I'm saying is actually there's something missing. And the missing link is daily standards. What I discovered and began to live by was daily standards, i.e., what were the basis criterion, levels, qualities, and rules that come from my authentic self, come from within me, that I should live in all the key aspects of my life, as in health and fitness, environment, relationships, emotions, career, time, and money. And on the business side, there's another 7 areas that we focus on when we're working with corporates and SMEs to say, these are the corporate areas that you would focus on. But as an individual, from my change first came, is to say, these are the areas for me. It was health. It was family. It was parts of my business and my career, and managing money, which was obviously I was pretty bad at. So what I did, I set new standards in those areas. And here's the difference. A standard comes from within, and it's only for today. A standard says, this is how I am today. This is how I'm being today. If someone interacts with me, this is the level of interaction I'm accepting today. This is the new rule, the new level, the new criteria, which are authentically set. This isn't how I'm going to be next week or in 3 years' time. I'm going to be this way. Because inside of us, we all actually know who we are.
So why is that so powerful today? Why, compared to the next week, what is the power of saying today?
Because you know what the thing about today is that you are present in your life today, and you're the best you today. You don't even know you've got tomorrow, but you're present today. But there's a couple of other real juicy bits that come out of this, which I just didn't know at the time. It's just a revelation, like, whoa, I'm going for it because life is rubbish anyway, or worse to that effect. But I'm going for it, so I went for it and then realized what was happening. And what I noticed was that the more that you're present, the more your gifts flow into your life. The more that you stay in today, the more that you stay present, the more that you stay in the now. It's as if by magic that the gifts that you've already got, the gifts that you came here with, begin to flow into your life. Now, if you think about it, your gifts and your talents, your abilities begin to flow because you're present in your life, not in the future or dwelling in the past. When you're present, they begin to flow. You now can come into the same job, the same work, the same relationship, the same strategy that you're in, and you can do it 3, 4, 5, 10 times better. So let's be really, really clear. I didn't run away and find myself. I was already here. So I stayed with the same company, self-employed, commission and fees only. I had the same products, the same services. Even now, I'm in the same office, but on my own now. So the same services and the whole thing. But within 3 years of that point and sticking to those standards and being present and being happy in the present time, I 10 times my income within 3 years. 10 times it. All documented with a FTSE 100 company, so it's all verifiable. So the idea there is that when we do these things, we begin to reveal ourselves. Now, here's the thing to answer your question. When these gifts begin revealing themselves to us, and we use them to change our lives and everything else, we have to accept that they must have been here all of those previous lean years. So it's the daily standards that got them to come out and to become present in our life. Most importantly, I became happy. So when we live as our true selves, with daily standards set from our authentic self, as we keep them, the keeping of the standards keep us in our true self. There's a kind of nice virtuous loop here. If we dare to go inside and discover what the right standards for me, my health, my relationships with that person, with my clients, my business, with my money. So it's really from an internal inspection. And we listen and set standards from that place. By sticking to those daily standards, just one day at a time, just one day, the only day we've got, sticking to them helps keep us inside, keep us in our truth. And the longer we stay in our truth, the more of our gifts begin to flow. So I wish I could say to you, Duncan, I just discovered this all in one sitting. But the discovery was actually, this is how I need to be for my truth. And the rest revealed itself to me as I began to realize, well, hold on a second. Life has never been this way for me before. And as you know, I then began to get inquiries of other people? How did you go from the broke guy working 6 days to a senior partner at the same company, now that we're a FTSE company and you're one of the top people in the company and we're 2,000 strong, you're one of the top guys, one of the top 30 producers. How'd you do that now that you're working part-time? So I was like, well, and I went to share with people this was what I did, and I wrote about this in the book, the 10-second philosophy, purely because the way I describe it is that I did it, and then I basically began to pick up the spots, things I was doing, because I did keep a journal, which was, I think it's vital for anyone's journey, keep a journal. And as I began to do that, people began to open and say, can you teach me this stuff? So I began to share about being authentic self, being true self, and living by daily standards. And then the rest, I'm sure you already know, how the world then accepted that and took me all around the world to audiences large and small.
If we take stock of our life right now, it says often because we took and lived by someone else's standards, be it
Correct.
Our parents, societies, newspapers, friends, maybe even celebrities we watch on some like celebrity TV program.
Yep.
We're actually consuming their standards and actually using that as our standards to live by. And that's what got us here where we are right now today.
That was so well put. I won't repeat it.
Perfect.
That's how it is. So the key, therefore, is to, we have this thing called the 6-step standards reframe, where you take time to stop and pause and review the existing standards that you have in your life, especially the areas that are frustrating you or making you unhappy or that you don't feel you're succeeding in. So you stop, review your existing standards. Part of that review is to consider the source.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Oh, I used to do that when I was 21 years old and go out on a Friday, drink 17 pints of beer, have a kebab on the way home. Back then that was okay, wasn't it? Because your body would just go, be gone, and your heart said, get rid of that. But now, if you're 41, you try doing that at 41. See, that standard may have served you then, but it will not serve you now, and it will not honor you now. So there are many standards in our life, personal, business, relationships, how we behave. A lot of the standards that were okay back then, but the question to ask as part of that review is, does that standard that you've got in this area of your life, does it honor and serve you? And does it allow you to honor and serve others? So to the degree that it honors and serves you, keep it. If it honors and serves you and allows you to honor and serve others, really strongly maintain it. And the others, we then go through a release process, then we go through a replacement process, then a reinforcement process, and then a recommitment process. And that's all part of the 6-step reframe. This is key because when you said that most people are living by, the way he described it was that they're actually living by standards which are not their own. So he asked people to then go inside and, for the first time in the 7 areas of their life, to discover what their real standards are for them. And then we give them processes and systems and reinforcements to stick to those standards, just one day at a time.
Yeah. And you mentioned a second ago, in passing, you mentioned like the idea of like a vision board or stuff like that. I mean, you're obviously someone who lives and breathes this concept of daily standards, but can one embrace this idea fully and still set long-term goals as well? Or do daily standards and long-term goals completely contradict one another?
They work together because, so what I did when I first woke up to this was actually just to stop setting more goals because they weren't working. That's where I was at that time at 38. But around the world, almost every audience that I speak to is more business or professional or personal development audience. When I ask who set goals, almost every hand goes up. And I then ask them a question, okay, and how's that working out for you? And then people say, oh, well, now that you mention it. And so what I say is actually, okay, fair enough. The missing link to your goal's success is your daily standards. Gotcha. Is your daily standards. And it's as if to say, keep your goals, stick your goals. I call them now, I have intentions, and another conversation we can talk about, I talk about who I am and I live through that being rather than setting out external goals. And I picked up through an interview with Eckhart Tolle and our past colleague, Wayne Dyer, and they had a conversation. And did you realize that neither of these two spiritual leaders set goals? They used to. And I can get you a copy of that, just where they had a conversation, where they just said, just remind me afterwards. They both said, actually, they talked to each other on this interview with Hay House, said, I don't set goals, said to Wayne Dyer. And I got told, said, well, I don't set goals either. And Wayne said, what I used to, but here's what it did to me. I'm like, I've been saying this for 10, 13 years now, here's why. And I was just hearing these great teachers, proper spiritual leaders saying, yeah. And I said, that's what it is. That's what I've been experiencing and sharing. But to hear those guys say that thing. And they got there in different ways, but they got to the point, hold on, is it possible that the goals that you're setting are making you not you? And are making you unhappy? And is it possible that most of the goals that you're setting are taken from the world rather than from within you? I'm just saying, is it possible? Could you consider that for a moment? And is it possible that, in fact, that the goals you set limit you, no matter how big you are? So I'll give you an example. I'm a guy from where am I from? From Birmingham. I'm a guy from inner city in Birmingham. You know, I'm one of 7 children. My parents are immigrants to this country. My mother, as I'm sure, and I know you know, my mother died when I was 13 years old. So my dad gave up his work, look after 7 kids, look after us. Went to school. I had a stutter. And, you know, until I was in my late 20s, very early 30s, had a stutter, was broke, almost bankrupt, lost one house, almost lost another, bailiffs from the house. When I woke up and began to live, you know, that true self way, I realized, hold on a second, all the goals I've been setting weren't me anyway. They weren't really me in my life. So I began to let my true self show up. And as the true self showed up with daily standards attached, I began to live that way, live my true self and be myself. So you then roll forward in real term, just a few short years. And I made my first million in 2006. I speak now around the world as a paid professional speaker, being paid thousands of pounds a time to go around the world and share daily standards and true self and the concepts of the 10-second philosophy book. I coach leaders. You know, I was in Paris 2 weeks ago with one of the top people at Google, having a first coaching session with him. I've coached footballers. If you go to my website at dailystandards.com, you'll see a really great coach from someone who came on my coaching, one of my programs 2 years ago, who happens to be the head scout at Leicester City, which is quite useful about now.
Absolutely.
Because he gives a really great testimony to say, listen, he said, Derek, 2 years ago, I came on your course, blah, 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 blah. So that what I'm saying is that how does that happen to this guy with that kind of history and that kind of baggage? You know, I get to coach and work with people, and on my wall, I've got pictures of me with Prince Edward here and Prince Charles here, been to their houses for dinner, at least Prince Edward's house for dinner. 2 years ago, my wife and I got invited to Buckingham Palace for Christmas, for a Christmas jazz party where Gregory Porter played. We're like pinching ourselves. Earlier this year in February, I'm sitting down having a one-to-one lunch with the Monacan ambassador. And literally in that meeting, when she went out the room, I did pinch myself to go, come on. I'm from Birmingham. And so down at the embassy in London, I was invited to, I did a private tour of the White House in 2008 with my family. 2 years ago, I was invited to a State Department given by John Kerry, a reception for an ambassador that was leaving, who became a personal friend of mine when I worked with her a few years ago. I'm literally the only way that this life is possible is because it's already inside of me. The person that can coach and lead and mentor leaders. And now, I'm not the guy to change things, but I genuinely believe that what I came here with is the ability to get others to notice what they can do to change things. I'm not the guy that changes things, but I do believe I can help others to wake up so that they can change things. And that's part of my gift, and that we all have gifts. Otherwise, how on earth does that guy get to become this guy? And I don't know what else is to come, but what I do know is I've guided people around the world to say there is far more to you than any goal. Any goal. I don't go to Robbins or Napoleon Hill. There's far more to you than any goal that you could ever set. And the answer is actually on the inside, not on the outside.
What does a fulfilled life mean to you?
A fulfilled life means to me to discover who I am and everything that I got, that I came here with, and to be that person to the benefit of others in love.
What is one thing all our listeners can do today that will have a massive positive effect on their lives?
Apart from buying the book?
Apart from buying the book, of course, number one.
It came in, so I said it. And no, actually, the most important thing to do, and it does take courage, is to dare to be yourself and live life at your own standards. I won't just throw that out there. It's because the world sees and treats you where you set the standards. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're in your business, your relationships, your health, whatever it is, at a 2, the world will treat you and meet you at a 2. If you set your standards at a 7, the world will meet you at a 7. You can do that. You can be in the same life, but living a 7 or a 10 rather than a 2, because the world meets treats, engages you where you set the standard. So set higher daily standards from within and live them just for today.
Last but not least, how can people stay in touch, find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, the website that we have it's called dailystandards.com, or one word. And to get in touch there, look at our stuff, watch a couple of videos, read some of the work that we do. And if you find us and you want to join us one of our courses or programs, then do so. Email us, get in touch on Facebook. We're on there, dailystandards.com. We're on Twitter, although I don't use it very much. Do whatever you need to do. If you feel that you're moved by what we shared today, get in touch, connect, and who knows, one day at a time.
Derek, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Brilliant.
It's been fascinating. I'm gonna switch that, because I totally feel that, but by day, I think it can. I'm ready to embrace this kind of concept. So thank you for sharing it, and thank you for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
God bless you, Duncan. Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Before I go, because this isn't new, by the way. I don't give this impression that this stuff is new. 2,000 years ago, a man walked the earth, and he gave us, I have a faith, and this guy walked the earth and he said, remember these words. And he gave us this Lord's Prayer. And in the middle of the Lord's Prayer were 4 words that he gave us, and they were, give us this day. Give us this day. Not give us this week, or this quarter, or this fiscal year, or this 3-year business plan, or this 20-year program. Give us this day. And later on in that scripture, he says, don't worry about tomorrow. Everybody knows this one. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. There's only one way tomorrow takes care of itself. Only if you give us this day. It's about today. Thank you.
Thank you.